task either.
You don't know how sweet I am. You don't know how sweet I am. I am what I am, and I am sweet. You don't know how sweet I am.
Yo, check this. I might not be what you want me to be, so you might not see what you want to see. But if you got a minute, listen to what I gotta say. Cause it's a brand new year, and it's a brand new day. See, there's a gap between my culture and the life that I lead. So some will call me an apple, and some a bad seed. They have no idea how my heart will bleed. Their words and attitudes are things I just don't need.
You don't know how sweet I am. I am what I am, and I am sweet.
You see, I'm proud of who I am, and I'm proud of where I'm from. Those ones spreading racism, they're just fucking dumb. Now if you're looking at my life, and you say I've assimilated, to simplify things, just a little more complicated. See, I'm a modern day native, with a modern day life. I have modern day problems, and modern day strife.
You don't know how sweet I am. You don't know how sweet I am.
Now I hear other natives, they talk about the past, and will I do the same? Fuck that. See, I've got no time to dwell on what's already done. I've got too many things that I want to do, and they don't include knives, and they don't include guns. I'm talking about knowledge and sharing it too. See, my people need to learn how to cohabitate, get rid of the anger, and get rid of the hate. We gotta stop for a minute and learn to educate, and you'll see in the end, we all have to communicate. I know there'll be a time to make a stand and a time to fight, but if you do that, make sure the cause is right. Because if the cause is right, and the cause is just, greater numbers of people will be backing you up. History has repeatedly shown to us all that united we stand and divided we fall. They were talking about natives and natives alone, because this is a big world, and this world is our home. Now I've seen some beautiful people, and ugly ones too, and there's no single color that comes into view. So the message I'm sending, it's not all that long. It's just, I want the human race to be stronger than strong. I said I just want the human race to be stronger than strong.
We all have to be strong.
Done it. Word.
We all have to be strong. Peace.
Sigully Swag Rag. Gela hindi niyo get wagi sliwagi ni wakitaloda unidag ngwe wenege ani bojo danse okinapi how and yanko yukwedonla skanlanako. So for those of you who have just joined us, I always introduce myself in my original language. So I said Sigoli Swagwag or hello everyone. Gala Hindi is my name, translates to clouds passing over in the colonial language, and I'm a member of the people of the Standing Stone First Nations here on the northern part of Turtle Island that's been relabeled Canada. And within the confines of that definition, I'm in a small section called Southwestern Ontario. And I am Bear Clan, and I said, Yanko Yukotonla, or thank you, friends, for joining and welcome. And I'm glad that you can be here. So today, a couple of things we're doing. First part of what I'm doing today is we're going to be, I'm waiting for the Zoom to start here, but we're joining in on a talk by Santee Smith. Um, Santee is a multidisciplinary artist who is from the Ganagahaga Nation or the Mohawk Nation of Turtle Island, and she is Turtle Clan. And she's from the Six Nations of Grand River, which is again in southwestern Ontario, which many of you may have heard me talk about before. And we're essentially sharing content from the traditional lands, treaty lands of the Treaty of One Dish, the Dish with One Spoon, which is the area for the Haudenosaunee, the Huron, Delaware, and Anishinaabe nations. And so um, I am currently just I logged into the Zoom, and we're essentially just waiting for them to spark it up. It should be starting any minute now. Now, this should last about an hour and a half, approximately. I'm thinking she's going to probably talk for an hour, maybe half an hour questions. I'm not exactly sure what to expect from this, because it was very vague, the description, but I think that that's probably the usual format for these types of things. And then I'm going to take a break after this discussion, and then we'll be back at 6 o'clock to start our Indigenous music night. So if you want to grab drinks and snacks and friends and kick up your feet and just enjoy some music, um, we'll be back up after at 6 o'clock after I take our rodent for a walk and have dinner and that kind of stuff after this talk. So feel free to come back and join us for that. What I try to do when possible is I try to keep the commands up to date. So this is essentially kind of what we're doing right now. Is we're just waiting for Santee to start and sign in and get started. But then we also are um, going to say, oh,
Recording in progress.
Check.
here we go. Let me get my face off the screen here. Okay, so as you can see, they have the sound off at the moment. So the Wampum Learning Lodge actually is the same place where we just went to the graduation of Fab Feline. Um, we're running on Indian time. One of my elders once said, Indian time is when it's the right time. We start events and gatherings when the time is right. So if they haven't started, it means that the time is not quite right.
Okay, so bonjour everyone. Welcome to the Wampum Learning Lodge. I apologize for the delay in starting. I was just sitting here chatting with some new friends. I didn't realize that I was supposed to get up here and get things started. Just enjoying such a beautiful day. So, Netta Noki Kwe, Indigenous cause. So, hardworking woman is my name. And Anishinaabe Kwe Endau. I'm an Anishinaabe woman from Kettle and Stony Point First Nation, Kikonandunjiva, and Majika Dodem. Turtle is my clan, Anishinaabe Kwe Endau, and I am a woman from the Anishinaabe Nation. So I'm just welcoming you to the lodge. I'm so happy to see you all here on such a beautiful day. My role here at Western is the Vice Provost and Associate Vice President for Indigenous Initiatives. And it's an inaugural position. I've been in the role for 2 years and just a bit. And so very excited to have this beautiful space, the lodge here at Western, which is the hub of our work for truth and reconciliation. Our work is informed by a very robust Indigenous strategic plan, and also informed by Western's institutional plan called Western at 150. And a significant theme in the work that we do pertains to the work of reconciliation. And we come at that from so many different approaches, from holistic approaches, not from one discipline only, but from an interdisciplinary approach. And it's very fitting that we have this wonderful opportunity to have Santee join us today, and through her creativity, through arts, celebrate the work of truth, understanding, and then reconciliation. So I'm just so very happy to have the honor to welcome you here. I just encourage you to enjoy this beautiful space and the intentionality of it. Everything in this center has a purpose, and that is really to bring us all together to, in some instances, unlearn and relearn, but then move forward together on a healing journey. So thank you very much for coming today, and please visit our website where if you go to Western Indigenous Initiatives Wampum Learning Lodge, there you will see an overview of our programming and the schedule so that you can come and join in with the programming that we have available for you all. Okay, so I think at this time we're looking to call up the Dean, Dean Michael Milday. Over to you.
Apparently, you have to hold this so you can hear me. There you go. Sorry, Christy. So my name is Michael Milday, and I am the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you all here, as well as the people who are coming to this event via Zoom. I'd like to thank Christy and her crew for welcoming us to the Wampum Learning Lodge. And I'd also like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and Shantaan peoples, on lands that are covered by the treaties of London Township and Sombra of 1796 and the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum. Now, as I've been doing these land acknowledgements, I have taken to asking the audience, how many people here have actually read any of those treaties? Hands up. Wow, even here. One day I hope that I will ask that question and every hand in the crowd will go up. I recognize that as a university and as the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, we have a special responsibility to teach the history of this land and of the peoples who live on it. And I will say I have read those treaties and they make for very interesting readings, and I hope we can all share those someday. We have a lot of work to do in terms of anti-racism and reconciliation. And so it is, with a great deal of humility that we commit ourselves to that ongoing task. Thank you. And I'm going to hand it over to the Chair of Visual Art, Alina Robin.
Thank you very much. My name is Alina Robin. I'm Chair of the Organizational Department. I'm here to introduce Kelly Green, who organized this great event. I also want to thank our colleagues from the Office of Indigenous Initiatives for hosting the event here. It's actually my first time in the place. I'm very, very honored to be here. Kelly is the inaugural Indigenous Artist in Residence in the Department of Visual Arts here at Western University with the support of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities. And as part of a role, she organized a lot of events like this one, so we're very grateful. She's been with us for 2 years that have been very productive, and she filled the department with her energy and dynamism, and we're very grateful to have her with us. So Kelly Green is a multimedia artist whose work includes painting, sculpture, installation, and photomontage. She is a Mohawk Oneida Sicilian ancestry, a member of the Six Nations of the Grand River, and a descendant of the Turtle Clan. Kelly began her visual arts studies at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, where she moved with her family when she was a child. And she obtained a BFA from Western University. So this is her alma mater. So we're very grateful again that she could come back and be with us for a little bit longer. Kelly has exhibited in Canada and the United States for over 30 years now in solo and group exhibitions. She's very much involved with the Woodland Cultural Center, and she has exhibited around other places in Ontario and Canada and the US. You do so many things. Our art focuses primarily on environmental, Haudenosaunee, political, and autobiographical topics, using ironic humor when possible. She is also very concerned about the alarming condition of our planet, and lately she's been collaborating with the Ivy School of Business for a question of sustainability and the environment. So Kelly, thank you so much for organizing this talk. So I will hand the microphone to you.
Thank you, Elena, for those kind and supportive words as always. And thank you, Dean Milday, for acknowledging the lands that were gathered upon and reading the treaties. And thank you all for being here in person and online for this very special presentation by Santee Smith, who's not only truly an amazing artist, who I'm so very honored to introduce, but I must say she is also superhuman. I'm letting the cat out of the bag that all of the artists and performers that I have invited during my residency, which has been an amazing experience and journey in my life, right up there with, right after the birth of my children, I must say, but all the presenters have also been superhuman, in my opinion. I don't know how many hours they have in a day, how many days they have in a year, but it's beyond my comprehension. So Santee's presentation is called Talking Earth, Inviting the Land to Shape Us. And Santee speaks about her artistic work, life, and creative process, which takes inspiration from her Haudenosaunee family legacy and vision to create and move in alignment with Ongwehowe Neham, our way of life, language, and to Kasastan Selagoa Seoyela. I'm going to quickly define those words, those Mohawk words, just a little introduction to and meaning. So Haudenosaunee means they who make the house, and that refers to 6 nations. They meaning men, house to the longhouse. And Kasastan Selagoa Seoyela means the great strength and power of nature. Santee's work is truly awe-inspiring, and she seems to defy time as she prolifically produced diverse artworks and obtained prestigious accomplishments throughout her career. She is a multidisciplinary artist from Ganyagehaga, Mohawk Nation, Turtle Clan, Oswegon 6 Nations of the Grand River. Santee trained at Canada's National Ballet School and completed physical education and psychology degrees from McMaster University and an MA in dance from York University. Her debut work, Gahawi, a family creation story, premiered in 2004. And 1 year later, she founded Gahawi Dance Theater, which has grown into an internationally renowned company. Santee's artistic work speaks about identity, Indigenous narratives, creative process, and representation. Her body of work includes numerous productions and she spearheads. Cool. She spearheads international Indigenous collaborative projects. She is a recipient of numerous awards and commissions, such as guest curator director of Toronto Live's animated performance project, Gagwi Dene Digahawi, Call Response to Spring, and the Gardner Museum's Indigenous Public Art for Talking Earth 2022. Santee is touring her production based on the truths of Canada's first Indian residential school, Mushhole, which received 5 Dora Maver Moore Awards. Santee is a sought-after teacher and speaker on the performing arts and Indigenous performance and culture, and she is the 19th Chancellor of McMaster University. Santee's most recent production, Homelands, premiered just this past weekend at Harborfront Center. So, as you can see, she is truly superhuman. So without further delay, it is my privilege and honor to introduce Santee Smith.
Hold on. Yahweh, thank you. Thank you so much for your introduction and for inviting me to come and share some words with you and about my work. Sego, Sewa, Guego, greetings everyone. Santee Smith, Dagalanyakwa, Nyumnya, Skayangihaga, Nivagohosodan, Waganyakta, Oswegan. And my Ongwahoe name is Dagalanyakwa, which means picking up the sky. And the older version to say Six Nations is called Oswegan. And Oswegan refers to the bubbling up of water undercurrent. And so that's what is the traditional name of Six Nations. So Six Nations is a very contemporary name, but that's what we know nowadays. So thank you for the lovely introduction. I enjoyed having a tour of this facility and the beautiful imagery, some of which I'm going to talk about in my presentation. But before we begin, I would like to share some words with you, the Ohandu Galiwa Degwan, because it is important as an affirmation, but also it ties into some of the things that I'm going to talk about, especially in terms of our relationship with land and communication with land and sustainability and just way of being with nature. Some of you may have heard this before, but this is, oops, I went over there. Okay, I'll talk about it. Te watahosios ne gat ne galiwesa ne ona ne angali hohetste ne ganawala danserla. So I wanted to give greetings and acknowledgement to the creative living universe of which we all are a part of, and that our minds and our hearts come together and think about these things, the connections that we have and interdependencies, and to be grateful. We give greetings and acknowledgement to the people. Onwe Howe means the people or the real people. And if you study the root word Onwe, it means human, and Onwe means forever. So another way of looking at human beings is people of the way of forever. And that means people who are nature made, who are creation made. We are made of land and waters and all the elements. So we acknowledge our ancestors, our family, friends, our colleagues, all people. We give greetings and acknowledgement to Mother Earth. She provides us with everything that we need to survive, to thrive. And we want to remember and embody and acknowledge our umbilical connection to Mother Earth. We give greetings and our gratitude to the waters, and that's the waters, all waters, streams, the waters flowing in our bodies, and water is life. We give our greetings to the fish life, where they provide us with everything, sustenance, purification of the water, beauty. We give acknowledgement to all of the plants, medicines. We acknowledge the purification, the sustenance, and also the beauty of the plant life. We give greetings to the insects, all of the insects who help to pollinate the plants provide us with sustenance. So be it in our minds. We give greetings and our gratitude towards our sustenance foods who nourish us and provide us with energy and sustain us. So be it in our minds. We give our greetings to all of the fruit for providing us with sustenance. We give acknowledgement to all of the animals, many who sacrifice their lives to sustain us, who are the greatest teachers that we have, who we emulate and how to live in balance with the world. We give acknowledgement to all of the birds for their beautiful singing and uplifts our spirits, and also for sustenance. So be it in our minds. We give acknowledgement and gratitude to the trees, every tree in existence. We give thanks for providing us with the oxygen that we need to survive, and a lot of the times medicines as well. So be it in our minds. We give acknowledgement to the circulating winds who travel the earth, bringing new life and new breath. So be it in our minds. We give acknowledgement and greetings to Grandfather Thunderers who provide us with activation and energy and purifying of the land and purifying of us as well. So be it in our minds. That's ne anjangeni galakwa etonayonto hagetne negwat nigula. We give acknowledgement to the eldest brother's son who travels in a cycle every day with consistency to protect us and provide us with life. So be it in our minds. We give acknowledgement and greetings to Grandmother Moon for her powerful pull on our cycles, on water, and our connection to women and birth. So be it in our minds. We acknowledge the stars, the cosmos, for providing us with direction and light and beauty. So be it in our minds. We give acknowledgement to spiritual teachers who provide us with guidance and direction. So be it in our minds. We give acknowledgement and greetings to all of creation, the great mystery, the great creation, the creative energy that exists in everything, in everywhere, and in all of us. So be it in our minds. So that's very short, extremely short Thanksgiving, and I might have missed a lot of things, but you can add to things to be grateful for and to acknowledge. And it's an affirmation, not a prayer. It's an affirmation and recognizing our interdependence and that we belong as human beings to this web of life, and the importance of balance between all of that. And the acknowledgement of the creation, the creative energy. Means strength, and Sa'oyela means also immense creation. So as human beings, we are the ones who have to be reminded to follow original instructions of creation and alignment. Whereas animals, they instinctively do that. We have to choose to be responsible and perpetuating this balance. So I wanted to start with that because later we'll circle around to what I mean by inviting the land to shape us. And my work inside of working with land, in collaboration with land, and with clay, which is also land, pottery. And so I just want to go through a little bit of a background of Talking Earth. I see some of you here might have already known a little bit about Talking Earth pottery from my parents. But I wanted to start, I always like to start with acknowledging my ancestors and the powerful women in my ancestry, and the importance of using creativity for providing sustenance for the family. So this is my great-grandmother. She's a Gayangihaga. She was a midwife. She's working here in picture with corn husks. She was making different things out of corn. She was a clan mother. She was also a farmer. She cultivated the land. So she was a really strong matriarch in our family. And it's somebody who I never met. I never met her. Or maybe I was just a wee baby. But she's somebody who I look to even before I go to a performance. I remember her and call on strength from her. And my other major inspiration is my paternal grandmother, Aldebaran Smith, and she revived the lost art of pottery making in the community of Six Nations. So at a certain time, when people start using pots and pans for functional wear, they stop making pottery for vessels, for cooking, for containers and everything like that. And really, she took it upon herself in the 1960s to start looking at shards, because we would be, finding shards or finding pieces of pottery, and you could see them in museums and massive cabinets of pottery. And so she went to a museum, she did her independent research, and then she dug her own clay. She went through that whole process. And then she also learned contemporary style throwing on the wheel. And she taught people in Six Nations. And then she created a little collective called Mohawk Pottery. She was also very talented woman. And so she's somebody who informs my work as well as my family. And this is her. I like to show this photo because this was a piece of pottery here that she gifted Queen Elizabeth at Expo 1967 in Montreal. And I think it's important to note what she etched on the piece of pottery. She etched wampum belts. And it was her way of reminding the crown of our treaty obligations. Through this beautiful piece of work, let's be reminded of the relationship building that needs to happen and ongoing. And so in that way that it really sparked this sense in my family, from her to my parents and to me, about how creativity, how art can be a way of educating, increasing awareness of activating concepts and ideas, and also in a gentle way. So as an artist, this is the path for me. And then my parents continued on after that, and they created Talking Earth Pottery, which I also worked at. I like to show this one too, because this is my first piece well, it's not my first piece of pottery. I think I did this when I was maybe 5 years old. But you can see I was still doing wampum belt designs. So that was really important. This was the like a friendship belt, representative of the people holding hands. You might see that somewhere in this building. These symbols that really are encoded knowledges. So when we look at symbols, even these symbols up here, that's encoded knowledges. I have pottery symbols etched into me that speak volumes. You know, we didn't write things in books. And there's a belief that things were not to be written down, because if it was written down, it could be changed, it could be forgotten. Our knowledge needs to be written in our heart. And so that's one of the reasons why, you know, oral history was really important, because you have to live it. You have to hold that knowledge in your body, not just on a piece of paper that could also be burned or destroyed. So that's a little bit of concept. So even etching on the pottery, that's encoded knowledges of natural pathways, of our topography, of our way of life, and understanding of energies. So fast forward until last year, I was commissioned to create a large-scale ceramic sculpture, which sits outside of the Gardner Museum. If you've been to the Gardner Museum, it's right across from the ROM. I'm standing there dancing, but right beside it, that large piece of pottery, that's my sculpture, and it stands about this tall. It's a part of the permanent collection, and it's also it's a fractured piece of pottery. So intentionally, we fractured it as a representation of intactness and fracture, and also, you know, the finding of shards, the fracture, the knowledge held within a shard, and the coming together of those knowledges. But also, as I was discovering this, I came to really resonate with the beauty of the fracture, because a lot of the times in the work that I do with, you know, residential school, working with survivors, and a lot of trauma and fracture and colonial implications of fracture. But there's such beauty in that as well, that, and that's what I wanted to showcase there. Inside of the piece of pottery is internal lighting. So in the evening, light shines through the cracks. And that is also to beautify and to show the power of that coming together and holding still of those fractured and knowledges coming together. And then this is my daughter down here. She was performing with me, and she's hand building a piece of pottery right there. And she's clayed. And over the course of the performance, I go from just normal to being clayed completely. And we 3D projected mapped onto the facade of the Gardner Museum some of our family history. So my grandmother's face, my dad we've got a photo, video of him throwing a piece of pottery, some of the etchings, and really sort of honoring that family legacy of pottery and that connection to earth. And the title "Talking Earth" was my mother and father's, and they came up with that as the name for their pottery. And I think it's really telling in that the earth speaks to us. Like they were creating these vessels from the earth, and then designing and coding knowledges on it, but the earth was also speaking forward. And that idea of listening to the earth. So that is a little bit about Talking Earth. Here you can see in this photo that I do work with shards as well. So this piece here covering my eyes as a shard, ancient shards, I have a sort of a collar of a shard, and then I'm holding shards. And that is coming onto the body, representing that fracture, but also the beauty of it, and the sense that for my family, and I think for a lot of Ongwahoi, pottery making and working with earth is very feminine. And traditionally, mostly women would have been the pottery makers. And the shape of our traditional pottery is in the shape of a woman. So we have maybe I could go back. You can sort of see it here, sort of like the belly of the pot here is a container, like the womb contains and holds things, life, food, sustenance. traditionally, the pot that I did there would have a pointed, rounded bottom because we didn't have tables. They would have been, swiveled down into the earth. And that would be that connection right into the womb, into the earth. And the neck, you actually call the pottery the neck, this part. And then this here is the four-cornered traditional vessel, and that's the head. And then the top part is open to the sky, so that would be the openness up to the sky. So my father in particular really viewed his work as making vessels that were very feminine, that represented women. And that's really important. Even the Thanksgiving, we acknowledge Mother Earth, and that is a feminine entity. Yeah. And then I, as a dance performer, like being covered in clay. It's one of my favorite things to do. Just because of that connection of putting the earth onto yourself. It's part of our creation story. So our creation story, we are made of clay. We are made of clay. And so that really is me embodying that story. But over the years, working with clay and performance, I have been working with the idea of clay woman. And she appears in many of my works. And it's a common theme, especially in cultures that work with clay. And in the South, there's a lot of potters in the South. So that idea of clay woman is, I think, an ancient symbol. Here's another photo. Oh, this is a little clip. So this is this is a little clip from last summer's premiere at the Gardner Museum, and then we're going to be remounting it in June 20th and June 21st. So we'll be back at the Gardner Museum to do the performance of it. If you're in Toronto, that's a good time to come to the Gardner Museum. that's a little bit, it's very meditative. It's a performance installation. That's what we call it. So it's very, well, when the space, you see that it's starting at sunset and by the end it gets dark and you get to see the video. So that's a little bit about that journey of the clay talking earth. But it really takes me back into some of the creative process and some of the research that I enjoy doing and continue to learn about how to embody Ongwe Neha. And Ongwe Neha is all of the things that are traditional ways, songs, dances, language, governance, mindset, everything that is done in our pre-colonial ways. And as an embodied performer, I like to be physical. It has to come into the body. It can't just stay as the intellectual concept. And even in this Thanksgiving address, we repeat that word, so be it in our minds. That mind-body connection is very important. And when we're thinking and working in that way, some of these questions can be asked. What is our ecosystem? How do we create and structure our any program that we're building? How do we build sustainable relationships? What does our space look like? And this is an example, I would say, of following, the ways of organizing our space. What does growth look like in a sustainable way? So for me, as a artistic director of a company, growth does not mean exponential growth or more, bigger, more. It is to be expanding and contracting in a very natural way. And as you know, exponential growth is ultimately leads to imbalance. So that's, lots of research, tons of research you can do about this. And through the work that I do in designing on pieces of pottery and through developing choreography and movement and working with indigenous dramaturgy or creating from a way that comes from indigenous understanding as opposed to Euro-Western understandings on theater or whatever practice you're doing. Some of these really resonate with what I have been researching. Pattern recognition and literacy, that's all of these things here. The patterns that we have, the iconography and the symbols. The really important one is universal natural force or law. And my parents and a lot of my elder teachers would say, only follow the natural law, natural force. Anything man-made can be broken and changed, but you can never change natural law. It is it is life. You cannot change it, and so that's what we follow, or we try to be in sync with it. That everything is creative energy. We're all energies. And when we're looking at the way of being sustainable and acknowledging our interdependence, that what we create, is it reciprocal, regenerative, sustainable, and the importance of, as human beings, and especially as women, being life sustainers and thinking forward to the next generations, collaborations, and responsiveness, responding to land. And in my choreography, I like to be in a call and response relationship with land. When I go out to the land, that it's giving and receiving. And that's really important to do because a lot of the times we've forgotten how to listen and respond to nature being in the land. And it is not a simple task to do. It takes time and investment in doing that. And so this is just a little bit of some of our Ongwe Neha planning. This is very rudimentary. This is from way before, but you will see that it has more of organic. It's based on a branching energy, and we'll keep working in this sort of way. And the focus then is on natural patterning. And many of you might know all of this, but I like to just quickly go through. I use this in all of my work. I use this in the studio when I'm dancing with my dancers. We will look at a scene and we'll say, okay, how is branching come into this? Or how are spirals? Or this scene is really about water, and this scene is really about the branching. But then you can go and you can see. So everything is represented in nature. So branching of the lungs, and you can go on and on and on and on. And then you can look at our symbols, tree of peace, white roots of peace. Those are fundamental Ongwahoyan understandings in our culture. And then you can go as an artistic director, then go, how can this be for the company? How do we move people around? How do we intersect? And on. So there's lots of research. And there's an example of the model. And these are universal. So there's many teachings around the world about natural pathways, permaculture, sort of contemporary permaculture is really based on indigenous knowledges because we had that for millennia in our lands. Here's an example of isolation. This structure right here is the strongest structure in nature. And I build choreography. I build choreography out of that. You look at basket weaving. How do we organize our people in a way that's very strong? How do we build our spaces? And everything is reflected in nature. There we go. 6-pointed stars, nature. Spirals, this is a really important natural pathway. And we are basically made of spirals. We don't have a straight line in our body. We're all curvilinear and moving. So that's, when we're dancing, we're moving in spirals, twisting, especially your spine, to be healthy and to be moving in alignment and sync with the natural energy that is everywhere out there. And some of these symbols are very important. So this is a spiral right there on the two outsides. You see that a lot in many indigenous cultures around the world, and other cultures really represents life, that floral design, life, plant life. And this is where we talk about growth. It's additive growth, not exponential. Here's an example. We are made of spirals. Sunflowers spiraling. And this was really, I like to work with the knowledge of Roxanne Schwenzel. She's also a pottery designer from New Mexico. She has a company called Permaculture Flowering Institute, and she shares indigenous permaculture. And talks about especially the spiraling aspect of something like a sunflower, and all those seeds in there are shaped in a certain way. And I like how she framed it. She said, "Is it just that's the way they're shaped, or is that the way the energy is moving through them? What shaped them that way?" And so that led me to a lot of thinking about what shapes us. And that idea of inviting the land to shape us. What shapes us? Yeah, and so that became part of my creative process. It's like going out into nature and allowing things to shape us. And I have a sunflower dance. Spirals, I'll quickly go. Here's a perfect example of a spiral over there. That's slice of a tree. And the one important thing about that is the beginning spot. So that center spot. And that centering point is really important because we have centering points, our umbilical. If we don't have a centering point, we might be like wobbling around, uncentered, unfocused. So it's important that we see that continual growth in that way. And then also the ecological calendar. So I plan my work around the ecological calendar, which is very because everything we do follows the cycles of the natural world. Do some examples. This is our sunflower garden, which we dance inside of. Stacking. This is really important for when you're planting and cultivating the land. Our ancestors knew about stacking. Corn, beans, and squash are stacked in a certain way. And it's a really important idea of companion planting or relationship building, what goes together, what's nourishing each other. And our ancestors knew all about that how what nutrients help something to reach its full potential. There's my garden from last year. Yesterday I was busy seeding. So I'm behind schedule because we premiered last week. Flow is a really good one. Flow is the canopy of clouds, the canopy top part of the tree. And then a lot of times people will say, just go with the flow. And that is really what you need to do, go with the flow, because things will move and fluctuate like that. It's a bit of freedom in that. Is an example. Some people might make songs out of the tree line. In Australia, they have things called song lines based on nature. And the wave tells us about movement of energy. All right, so I think I'm coming to an end. There's so much to talk about. I was like, I can put everything in one, which takes me to the final of homelands. And what does that mean of working inland? So this is a clip. This is in upstate New York, which is in our traditional home territory. And I was on location here at the SUNY New York Forestry and Ecological Campus. We stayed there. And during that time, we were just exploring about being in the land, what we could do. And I ended up creating this portal. And it became an installation piece. And I was really interested in transformation. And again, Clay Woman appears. So I wanted to show this video, sort of like the research. That was the research for homelands. And then little clips of homelands, which we premiered this past weekend, which is a multimedia performance, which also has pottery in it, because that is the theme of my work, is integrating all of these styles and forms. There was being a very primordial character of Clay Woman. everything has a purpose. So the thing of threes, which you can't really see, so in the video up at the top, there's 3 women at the top. So there was 3 women in the video and 3 women here, which again becomes this 6. The strength of those coming together. And it's the cast of our dancers, and we finished that. We'll be remounting it in September at the First Santee Performing Arts in St. Catharines as a part of their Celebration of Nations Festival. Thank you, Nyawe. I think we have time for questions now. So we have questions can come from the from everybody here in the room, anyone, and I think there's some will be sending in questions online that we'll see if we can answer. Yes. You have thoughts about that? Yes. How does that reconcile? Obviously, because you're practicing. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Yes. So when I was little, I was in a series of accidents. I broke both my legs 2 separate times. So I ended up being put into ballet to strengthen my legs. But I was dancing before that. So I was one of those little kids who was just lost in a world of improvisation. And my grandmother, Elda Bunn Smith, had a ballet teacher friend in Brantford. And when they were saying, well, she needs to strengthen her legs, she just said, well, I have a friend. And of course, then I was a young girl and listened to music, and ballet became a way for me to develop as a dancer. And then I excelled, and then I went to National Ballet for 6 years. But when I was teen, I became disillusioned with replicating Euro stories, which I really, when you're thinking about identity and missing family and home and who am I, what do I want to do when I'm older, I really left the ballet world behind. I was like, shut the door on that aspect because of those reasons. The other thing that I could say about that is when I went to the National Ballet, I think I was maybe the 3rd Indigenous student there. I think there was one girl ahead of me, and then Michael Gray Eyes, who's now an actor, and myself. I was there in the early 80s to 88, yeah. And when I went to the school, my father said, don't tell anybody you're Indigenous or you're from Six Nations. And there's so I didn't share anything. When people asked me where I was from, or I would say Brantford, and that would be it. And really, he did it for a number of reasons. First, because a fear of institutions and me being away. His father and grandmother both went to the Mohawk Institute Residential School. So there was that fear of institution and fear of tokenization. Oh, we've got one Native dancer, and then of racism. And so that was his way of protecting me. But it also meant that I was even more removed from my identity. And so when I started to question that, and I just said, oh, I'm just going to move home. And that really, that was my formal training. And when I moved into creating, people asked me if I had contemporary dance training like Martha Graham or Limon, but I don't. I went from ballet to improvisation and developing my language. So very first works are very balletic because it stays in your body. Even my legs now are still, my muscles have formed in a certain way that is very balletic, and I'm able, but one good thing is I'm able to access that. So when I need to in a performance, so if I have to do spins, or I want to spin, I can do that with that training. And but then over the course of becoming choreographer and continuing to this day, I learned many Indigenous styles from around the world and collaborate with Indigenous artists so that I have a lot of tools that I can use when I'm creating. So for me, I couldn't ever really leave the ballet world behind because my body has memory of it. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of shards at home because of our family history, we collect shards. So sometimes people will just like they have shards laying around, they'll just give us shards. So if anybody has shards, I'll take them. And so I never really used them before until I started doing the performance work. But for the piece of The Gardener, it was really funny because I was working through the School of the Arts at McMaster University in the sculpture studio, because the piece was like this, and we had to make we made 5 of them because we knew in advance that we were going to have to create a large scale piece and break it. So we had to have tests. If you're a potter, you have to have lots of test pieces and fire it and, all of that stuff. So we were documenting everything on social media. You could probably look at my social media now and you would see, and, I'm intricately designing it and making the faces, and it's coming along. And then at one point it was cracking. So it started to crack, but people were like, oh, it's cracking. So yes, it is. Just wait. And then later we were like trying purposely to crack it, and people were like, oh, we're so sorry. It started to break. And we said, just wait. and then we had to purposely crack it, and was working with Carmela Langalez, who's one of the ceramic and profs at McMaster. And so we had like a team of people breaking this piece, and we did it like you would cut stone with little bits of nails. So we had like six people going nail, 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 and slowly it cracked in the way we wanted it to crack, plus in ways that it cracked as it did. So that was a surprise for people that we were purposefully breaking our pieces of pottery. There's a few intact ones that we didn't have to break, because if one didn't work out, we would have to do the other. And then we took all the giant pieces to a company called specializes in staging props, and they made an internal metal armature to hold all those pieces together. So when you go in to see it, you'll see there's big bolts in it because it's really heavy. It's over 300 pounds. And for safety, as a public art piece, it had to have some safety precautions. So yeah, it was purposely that way. And then these shards, like the pictures, those are found shards. Those are shards that we had in our family collection. Was there any other questions from online, or anybody? Any other questions? Yes. Oh yeah. Okay.
Clay woman.
Mm-hmm.
Moving as clay woman,
Mm-hmm.
what does that do to your mobility?
Mm.
And you talk about fracture, but just feeling that in my own body, I would think there would be restraint or some restriction to your mobility. And so I just wonder what that is like moving within clay.
That's a good question.
As it hardens on you.
Yeah, it does. So we put the clay on wet, and then however long it dries, and then it starts powdering off and cracking if you have a thick layer on your face. So you really feel ancient. Like when I'm doing that, I feel like I've become this primordial ancient being, and I really like that. I started getting other dancers to do it now, so but there might be a lot of play dancers running around. But people have been doing that for a while, and for me, it really is that connection to creation story and being made of the earth. And it is not it is really what we are. We are sort of accumulations of what we eat, which comes from the earth. Like, so those are all realities that we are. And yeah, so it's quite fun. In the video that we did, we recorded, and I did go through that whole time of being completely wet clay to dry clay to hitting my body, and like the clay dust was going into the air. And that was also beautiful. And then scaring people on my way home, like covered in clay. Yeah.
I'm wondering about the youth and the young people, Indigenous. Are they coming out to not coming out? I mean, are they joining the industry? You know, for theater and cultural enjoyment, enrichment.
Yes, I would say so. I mean, it's small, but even Homelands, these two here, Katie, she is 23, so went to George Brown College for dance. And then I scooped them up after, you know, like, I have my radar out about who's dancing out there. And Farron is also, has been dancing for a while, traditional dance, hoop dancer. She was one of the hoop dancers in Cirque du Soleil's Totem. Really beautiful performers. So that's what, for me, that's what I can do, is offer opportunities for professional dancers. And I think that it's still a handful of people across the land, but one thing to note is the sort of inequities that happen. There is no Indigenous dance training program in Canada, if not North America, that is very specific to training in dance. There is a theater program, Center for Indigenous Theater, but it's not dance specific. And so there's lots of challenges for up and coming performers. There's no access. And if they would still have to go to sort of studios or colleges which don't specialize in Indigenous dance. So it's more challenging. And then for my company, we offer community workshops and labs, but it's not the rigor of a full-time program that you would need to train professional artists. So that's something that's always out there, is like the inaccessibility for a lot, and the reality of maybe, say, somebody's living in the north and they want to train, and there's no training. So that still exists here. And that, that's the reality of some of those systemic barriers. Yes.
Hi. In working towards allyship, what is the way, maybe you could offer some advice on how to incorporate Indigenous artistic expression in the form of education?
Well, I think exposure is really great, and representation. So there's quite a few theater works. Kahawi Dance Theater has 3-4 works for young audiences. We have the Mush Hole, which we perform for young audiences, and as a study guide, and so there's lots of those sort of opportunities. And I think it's, in terms of the arts, it's really important that that when people are looking for supporting allyship, that the creative impetus and the creative work is Indigenous led. Key creatives. So it's just sort of a matter of finding those, and then supporting what is already existing, making opportunities for more of that, residencies, bringing artists in, opening up space for people to create work. So there's lots of things to do in terms of supporting what's already developing in the communities. And so I would say that would probably be the go-to. Universities can open space for artist residencies, creation processes, land-based work. Yeah, so there's lots of work to be done. But also knowing that that is initiated in it's coming from Indigenous voice, body, knowledge in that way.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. What do you have?
Okay, I just have a question about the Smith family and pottery at the Six Nations. And is it still being made? And is there a hub for this? And you must have relatives and so on involved.
Yeah, so there's only a handful of people on Six Nations. One of them is my cousin, Anthony Pottery, and my father had his studio up until 2018 when he became ill and closed the studio. So what is really a great evolution is that since 2018, the pottery at our home was closed. It was just nothing, no pieces going out. And then I was busy doing other things. My daughter's at university and my mom caretaking. And so really we had the pottery studio, which was a working studio in the gallery, just sitting there, like waiting to see if he could return. And he's not able to return, so it stays closed, which was really an awakening when I was able to come and do Talking Earth. That piece was just a surprise because one of my colleagues, Monique Mojica, who is a artist, sent me this call from the Gardner Museum and said, "Oh, this looks interesting, you should apply." And I was like, "I'll apply to this call." And then boom, all of a sudden I'm back doing pottery, but in a different way, in more of a sculptural way. And then have since transformed the studio at Six Nations into a multidisciplinary studio. So it has a dance or open area for embodied work. And then also part of the pottery studio. And last summer we built an outdoor kiln, so we're firing outside. So my journey is now a little bit different from my father, which was more kiln work, the throwing and porcelain. So now I'm working with sculptural work. And this summer we'll be working in the pottery again, but again hand building, outdoor firing, and I'm working with McMaster University's research project. They have been testing the residue inside ancient shards for like what was in these pieces. So they've done that part of the research, and so this week, people are coming to plan on. We're going to build pieces of pottery. We're going to fire them, and then we're going to cook out of them. So we're sort of doing this, and then they're going to be testing all what's happening out of that. So that's something that I'm interested in just as a person, and it just so happens that I'm able to support that work at McMaster University. Could I comment? Oh, yes.
You hear?
Yeah, can I comment on my experiences as a McMaster Chancellor? So I'm a graduate. You have to be from McMaster, an alumna, to become Chancellor. And at the time, it was President Patrick Dean was the president. And when he came on, he came to Six Nations like 8 years prior, however long his tenure was, and then he met a lot of people, and he met my father and myself and other artists or people in the community. And I have a lot of colleagues in Indigenous studies like Dr. Don Martin Hill, Rick Hill, a lot of Six Nations based academics. and Vanessa Watts Palace. And so over the years, I would do workshops or guest teaching. Never really like a full-time teacher or anything like that. And in 2018-19, I was a part of the Socrates project where we remounted the mashal, which was the work on the Mohawk Institute at McMaster. And it was like the January of 2019, President Dean invited me to have a meeting. So I was like, oh, it must be another project I can do. Sitting there, and then he said, oh, we'd like you to consider being chancellor. And so that was a surprise. So you have to be asked. I didn't apply. I didn't know anything about being a chancellor. And so I said, what does a chancellor do? Because, I don't even know what a chancellor does. I remember, convocating, and that's about it. And so they're, told me the things that I had to do, honorary position, every convocation. So I have to commit to every convocation. I have to be present because I'm conferring degrees, and my name is on all of the certificates, and people won't get a degree if I'm not sitting there giving it to them. So that I could carve into my years, and I chair the honorary degree committee. I work a lot on that, and anything else that I can do, I give talks and addresses and other graduation ceremonies, and then I am able to help different departments when they need to, or bring awareness to certain things. When the pandemic happened, I did a lot of online messages. I did a message after the George Floyd. I did a message after, I can't remember now, other things where it's sort of just like hearing, the sentiment and the view from Chancellor. And so that's what I can do. Also, I have my own regalia now. So that was one of the first things that happened is I changed the regalia, which incorporated a lot of Ongwahoi beadwork and my Glengarry hat. And so that shares a different perspective. When I give convocations, I say the Thanksgiving address, and I speak about, philosophy and mindset and things like that, which is, I think people have responded to very well to hear that. I don't do land acknowledgements. When I did my first Remembrance Day address, it was the first time that they had mentioned or honored Indigenous veterans. So these little shifts of awareness is what I can do, and also then just the work that I put out into the world gets, as an artist, as an individual, gets increased visibility, and I think that's, they made a different choice as a working Indigenous artist as chancellor. That's quite a bit different than other choices. I think, one question from online.
Yeah, we have a question from the Zoom audience. It's coming from a guest named JP Longboat. They're asking this question as a Haudenosaunee person. They ask, as I reclaim my relationships with our traditional lands, we have been separated from along and around the eastern end of Lake Ontario. I have felt so much hurt and grieving in the land and waters. Have you experienced this in your work that you have been doing with the land? And if so, how does it come into your work?
That's a great question, JP. JP is a colleague of mine. Yes, I can say that grief has come into the process. When I talk about the work in homelands, there is a grieving process because it's we think about your ancestors that had to be removed or made that long journey from upstate New York to, which is now Six Nations, and what they left behind, their ancestors in the land, the pottery shards, the pottery in the land, the community, the beauty. So upper state New York is beautiful. It's something that is rolling hills, streams, beautiful trees, all the way to the foothills of the Adirondacks and into the Adirondack Mountains. And then we say, oh, wow, this was our home. And now we live in Six Nations, which is mostly flat swamp area. I think I have 3 swamps in the backyard. So that there is a grieving process. There's also a deep listening process, and there is through the work in the land, there has been moments of deep grief that comes through. But the work that we premiered Homelands was not about grief; it was about joy. And I think that was the most powerful thing that people got out of our show, was the immense joy that the women had dancing and honoring our connections. So sort of like all of the emotions come into it. And like anybody who's displaced from their home, it's a universal feeling. If you've been displaced from your home, you know what it means, how it feels to be walking your land. So walking where your ancestors walked, or looking at what your ancestors looked at. Yeah, so it's very powerful for me as an artist to be working there. I think that's it. Oh, one last question. Your garden. My garden, yes. Well, my family are gardeners. So off and on, my parents, we were gardeners, horticulturalists, because of necessity of food. My parents very, very poor when I was little. And so we always had a garden. And I only came to gardening a lot since the pandemic because I was just home. And then I started working and absolutely love it. And I feel like it's just something that my ancestors did. I just align with it. And then one of the things that really makes it special for me is during the pandemic and all the theaters were closed and people were like having a meltdown because I can't perform. There's no theater. I created a stage. I grew a stage. That was my project. I grew a sunflower stage. So I had a 360 sunflower stage with over 500 sunflowers. And we danced in the middle of the sunflowers. And then we were doing this work. And at the same time, the National Arts Center was doing a project called Dancing the Lands, and a video project. And so that project, Ojijago, became a part of the Dancing the Lands. You can go online and look at that at the National Arts Center. So this last, and each year I keep building it. Last year I added a sand stage. So it's sand, and then there's the gardens and the food, and yeah. So it's my ongoing experiment of cultivating the land and inviting people in to be a part of that process. And I have a lot of dancer friends from Toronto who are like, can we come and help you plant? I'm like, yes, you can. You can weed too. And there's, but it's really important to get your hands and feet in the earth. And that's really what is grounding. And it's good for your well-being. So most of the summer I'm completely covered in earth and dirty and then covered in clay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ayale. I didn't put it up here, but we do have more information on the Kahawi Dance Theater website. Very active on Facebook with events that are coming up, Kahawi Dance. And we are having summer programming, so just stay tuned. And also we host people if they wanted to come and do a workshop in the land or a pottery workshop. Yeah. Yaoi, thank you so much.
Siguli swagwag, galich hindi niyo get, swagi
Hello.
shawani, diwak kitaloda. On your dog, Graham Winege. Um, Want to just again say I love the fact that Western University has been putting on these events to focus on reconciliation and build the relationship with the indigenous communities that are around here. So in my particular area, we are within the treaty area of a dish with one spoon, and that includes right now the Onondaga Nation of the Thames, which is where I'm from, the Chippewas of the Thames, and the what is it? Oh my goodness, just had a brain. Anyway, Six Nations of Grand River as well, or Ishuican as we call it, and so um, they're really trying to build those relationships and create a space for healing. So where they had that event today is something that they call the Wampum Learning Lodge. It's at the University of Western Ontario. And I'll show you real quickly here before we go um, what it,
Welcome to the
what it looks like here, just so that you can see where they held today's event. So let me first of all get this up, and I will switch this so that you can see. Now we also Fab Feline just graduated this year, and they had his graduation celebration at the lodge as well. So this is where it is.
Welcome to the Indigenous Learning Space. The space is going to be used as a hub for our Western community, Indigenous communities. This is where we want all of our activities to take place. Workshops, speaker series, social events, community engagement. We want to keep this space as busy as possible. This space was designed with students in mind. Having a space like this where Indigenous youth can see themselves and want to attend this school because a space like this exists within Western, I think is probably the most exciting thing. This is a space where a lot of important work is going to be accomplished. I see it as a place of cultural reclamation, reconciliation, revitalization, respect, building those relationships between all of us. It's just a place of growth, of hope, of opportunity, and that's what students have been looking for. I'm just really excited to be able to invite everybody to the space. We want it to be a home away from home.
So that is the lodge. I'll show you kind of what the side of this building actually looks like. So this is the lodge, and outside this part is brand new. Now this circular building is the actual lodge, and the outside part here is where we do ceremony. So we can have sacred fires and things like that to welcome visitors. So, for example, Western University, just about, I guess it was last summer, we had uh, the chief from Cowessess settlement come do a talk at the university. And now, typically, there are two things that happen when people go from one area to another area. Um, the host nation, in our case, we hosted the chief from Cowessess, and we put on a welcoming ceremony. This would normally be where we would do something like that. Now, because it wasn't quite ready for us to do it last year when we did the welcoming for us, we had the event held somewhere else, but we did a welcoming ceremony, and that allows for us to welcome in um, our visitors to have an acknowledgement and a feast. So we have food always when you're having well, any of our all of our events involve having food. But we had food, and then he in turn does something that we call an acknowledgement, a land acknowledgement, and it's not so much a land acknowledgement per se as an acknowledgement of thanking uh, for welcoming him as a guest onto our territory. Um, and so that goes with other places. If someone from our nation were to go out to Manitoba or BC or Alberta, is that we would expect that they would have a welcoming ceremony, and then we would do an acknowledgement as a way of thanking them for hosting us and being there to welcome us. So Western University really is trying to build on the reconciliation of, as I was saying, that relationship between the university and the indigenous communities around that surround it, because um, there are three very close communities to here, but there's also some communities like Kettle Point and Stony Point and Walpole Island and um, Oshuikan. They're all within, you know, within the driving distance if it, comes down to it. So they want to ensure that they are being respectful to all the nations, and I think that it's a great move forward for an institution. There's obviously got to be some kinks that get worked out along the way, but they're definitely stepping in the right direction, and I think that this building is really awesome to have for our ceremonies, and the ceremonial space on the outside is really great. So even in the wintertime or in the if it's raining and stuff, we can't do ceremonies on the outside, then we still have the building where we can still do ceremonies on inside indoors if we need it, which is what happened during graduation um, a couple weeks ago. So that being said, I'm going to post a VOD up of that event, the speech from Santee Smith. So anybody who missed it can definitely check it out. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to take a dinner break. We're going to um, probably walk our rodent and that kind of thing. Fantastic Kitty and I will walk the rodent and have our dinner, and I'll be back at 6 o'clock to do our music, and so we'll have our music night together. So if you want to hear some indigenous music and make some requests and potentially hear some artists that you may not have heard before, then I invite you to please come back and bring your snacks and drinks and kick up your feet and be ready to request some songs. And the music is from every genre. There are indigenous artists that cover blues, rock, hip hop, pop music, country, anything that you can think of. There's an artist who will fit the bill for you. So definitely feel free to come back for that. So in the meantime, I think we'll rate out, and I know that the surfs actually have just started, and they've rated me a number of times, and I feel like I should go back and return the favor. And I will hope that you would all stick around, and even if you don't stay for a long time, just come over and say hi to the serfs and let them know that we support them and that we appreciate that their support of us as well. So, a couple of things I will do here. First of all, I want to just let you know there's always a way in this channel to be as all inclusive as we can and to be as welcoming to everybody as we can. And we want to build relationships here as well. And so, they say a friend is just a hello away. And so you should just try it in whatever language you prefer, whether it be an indigenous language uh, or otherwise. Um, just say hello to somebody. And if you're a streamer, don't be afraid to hit Command Me. Let the people in our community know that you're a streamer so that they can come and join you and follow you and see what you do, and that we can all share the support together. And so that's what we're doing there. In the meantime, I'm going to also put in the rate calls. And so if you can copy whatever raid is appropriate for you, that would be great. And then we'll go over and see the serves. And so let me just make sure that they're actually in their channel. Okay. Yeah, it looks like they are in their channel. So we'll go over and see them. And again, I'll be back just around 6 o'clock or so as we start some music. So please come back and join us and make some requests and chill out to some tunes.
What they mean is that A, there are words, phrases, or sentences being used that the parties involved are not wholly on the same page about, and B, that difference is a minute and unimportant distraction from the topic, focus, or subject matter at hand. Look